So I just got done working out, and now we have galactic roaming. It's here. It's the new official launch page. What is this, like 2 FPS? 2 FPS background? Silverwolf's gonna be a quantum nihility character, and she's gonna have a couple of things. Now, let's touch on the main thing here. It's gonna be her skill, her ability to put an elemental weakness on a target. So let's fully explain this part. So you're gonna be able to use Silverwolf to put a weakness on an enemy. That weakness is gonna be a new weakness that they don't already have. We're talking about elemental weaknesses here. And it's gonna be determined by an element of someone in your team. That's where the RNG of Silverwolf's RNG, that is where you hear that come from, which is true. If you have just 4 different elements, it's a 25% chance that you're going to get the one that you want. And this is where you'll heal a lot of Silverwolf won't be good until we can make mono element teams. Silverwolf won't be good until we have all of the quantum characters for you, or triple pyro, or whatever it is. But here's the thing, Silverwolf can't put a weakness on an enemy that's already weak to an element, right? And you can manipulate this elemental weakness system with Silverwolf. Maybe not right now, but you will easier and easier as time goes on. This is because if Silverwolf can't put a weakness onto an enemy that an enemy already has a weakness to, it means you can manipulate the elemental system for that fight and bring specific characters. For instance, easy one, if an enemy is already weak to quantum, you can't put quantum weakness on the enemy. So if you bring 2 quantum characters, Silverwolf and then like another DPS, then it's not going to put quantum weak on the enemy because it's already quantum weak. What it will do is look at your other teammates' elementals and put an element weakness to one of those characters. So dual element teams could be pretty easy to put together and not too far along from now. Say an enemy's weak to physical, you bring 2 physical characters, and then you bring Silverwolf and Sele. And you can always make physical weak enemies also weak to quantum. That way they're weak to everyone in your party. They're naturally weak to physical, and now they're gonna be weak to quantum too. Same thing with imaginary. Maybe something's already weak to quantum, you bring Luocha and Yukong into your team, and now you can make that enemy that's already weak to quantum weak to imaginary, because you can't give it quantum weakness again, and the only thing you can give it is your imaginary weakness. So there's a lot of things you can do with Silverwolf to sort of manipulate the RNG amount of what she can do for you. And that's not even talking about, for instance, if we come over here and maybe we have a party makeup where an enemy is weak to already lightning as well as wind. Well, if it's already weak to lightning and wind, then I can bring Sela as well as Silverwolf. And since the enemy's already weak to lightning and already weak to wind, it won't put either of those on. And so it will always put quantum weakness on. So there's a lot of stuff you can do to manipulate this, and it's going to get better over time as we gain more characters. It's not going to be Silverwolf has to be a part of a mono element team. Mono quantum will be using her in 2028. It's gonna be a lot sooner than that, and it's gonna be a very powerful thing. And that's gonna be a pretty big thing. She also has some other things. She's got a giant defense break on her big ultimate ability, and has a pretty nice multiplier on it as well, 350%. So you can build her for sub DPS if you want that way. She's gonna be not super skill point intensive because, well, her skill is only single target. However, what I think you're gonna be doing with this character, the way I'm gonna play her as well, you're just gonna be putting this skill weakness thing on the big bad boss monster. But traditionally, you're not gonna be trying to put skill weak on every little tiny monster that you're fighting. Your team's gonna be able to beat those up already. You're just gonna put the skill weakness on the big HP soaking sponge enemy. She's also gonna have a passive ability that's gonna have a minor attack down, a minor speed down, and I think another minor defense down as well. So she's gonna have a lot of cool things. The element weakness thing is the most unique thing about her. Gonna be able to allow your teammates to break shields that they usually can't break before. And if you can manipulate it so you can make an entire party have the ability to break shields, there's a lot of crazy stuff you can do with her. Now, there is gonna be a light cone that comes out with her as well, and this is gonna be a very good one. This is incessant rain. A couple things about this: it is for 1 turn only, so that's something you need to think about there. But also, you can put this on with your ultimate ability, so you can use your ultimate whenever you want. So you can save your ultimate with the character who has incessant rain on, so maybe Silverwolf, put the big defense break on, put the Aether Code on, do some damage that way, and use your ultimate right before all of your other characters go. So you don't have to really wait and maybe speed tune everyone to make sure that you get the most value out of this defense buff. You're going to be able to use your ultimate to put it on there as well. And one other thing about this, unlike Genshin, things that have received damage increase, it's a different multiplier. It's not like Mona's elemental burst in Genshin where it just kind of stacks on top of all your other damage percent bonuses. It's a separate multiplier. So basically, without getting into any of the math for you there, it just means that you're going to be getting even more damage from this light cone for your entire party. It's a pretty big deal there. It's a pretty nice light cone. Now we have Luocha. Luocha's going to be a great healer. He's going to be a fantastic character. His main purpose is going to be a combination of his passive talents and his skill. So his skill is going to heal and remove a debuff. It's going to scale off 60% of your attack as a multiplier, which means around, if you have 3,000 attack on Luocha, you get 60% of that plus an extra 800 flat health every time you use the skill, and it's going to take one debuff off of one of your allies. It's not a lot of healing for one skill point there, but the cool thing is if someone gets hit and they go below 50% HP for whatever reason, you will activate this ability for free and it won't cost a skill point, immediately healing them and removing a debuff as well. And that free thing can happen once every 2 times the Luocha takes an action, which is very, very nice. However, on top of this, though, it's also going to do something really cool that gives you a stack of this resource for his passive talent. You need 2 of these stacks, and once you have 2 stacks, it's going to activate a field where whenever an ally attacks an enemy, it's going to heal your party, which is going to be very, very, very good. So a lot of players are looking forward to Luocha for a couple of reasons. They want a secondary healer. They also want to have access to not just a secondary healer, but someone that works very well with Blade in the future. Blade's going to be very similar to a character such as, well, at least Arlen. Will bring Arlen up because Arlen drains his own HP to use some skills. Blade's going to be doing the same thing there. So Luocha is going to be able to heal both those characters up pretty easily for almost no skill points between his free heal as well as his passive talent field, which is very good. You can also choose to use his technique out of combat to start the battle with your passive field already activated, which is a lot of healing. And then his ultimate as well, last I looked, it had 160% mod. It might be a 200% mod now at talent level 10. So it's not the hardest hitting thing ever for a character that's an attack scaler like Luocha is, but it's also going to give you a stack towards your passive, and it does remove a buff from an enemy, which could be very powerful, but there's not a lot of enemies right now that it's like, if you don't remove this buff, you just kind of lose the fight. So it's sort of like a nice thing to have. Now, before we move on to something else I want to talk about with Luocha, let's talk about his light cone, which is going to be Echoes of the Coffin here, which is going to be very nice. It's going to give you an attack buff, 24%. And then when you use your ultimate, your ally's going to gain 12 speed for 1 turn. Now, this 12 speed for 1 turn, honestly, as someone who's gone in and looked at speed tuning, made several videos about it, you can go check out how speed and action value are generated and how you can manipulate them. 12 speed is basically nothing. It's almost nothing. You would have to be at you'd have to be so close to a break point in getting an extra action in certain cycles for this to matter. It's not totally always irrelevant, just most of the time. You also gain some energy every time you attack a different enemy with this light cone, which is pretty nice. You gain 3 energy there. Honestly, this light cone's fine, but if you have some of the other energy regeneration abundance path light cones, you could use those instead. Now, another thing I want to talk about with Luocha real quick is that, yes, the banner for him is going to actually have Yukong on it. Now, Yukong's going to be an incredibly powerful, but a little bit more difficult to use Harmony character than the ones we already have. And a lot of this is going to come down to her needing to be speed tuned to gain access to the most possible buffs and value you can in your team, because she's going to have a skill that gives an attack buff for the next 2 turns, the next 2 actions that are taken. She needs to use her ultimate while someone has that attack buff up, including herself, to give a crit chance and a crit damage buff to your whole party. She's also going to want to be built for a little bit of damage because the multiplier on her ultimate is pretty nice. She's going to benefit from her own crit chance and crit damage buff. She's going to benefit from her own attack percent multiplier. And a lot of this is going to be needed to speed tuned properly in your party, so the right characters are taking advantage of the attack buff and the crit chance buff and the crit damage buff. You don't want to be putting these buffs on and then running over and being like, all right, well, my Asta got a buff and then my tank got a buff. If you do that, that's not going to be very good for you, but she's going to be very, very powerful, just a little bit more difficult to use than other Harmony characters. A lot of the other Harmony characters are like, just hit some buttons, you're doing good. This one takes a little bit of IQ to get going, but she is going to be on the Luocha banner. If you want to know more about her, check out the video. I'll have it linked down below. That's entirely about her and how I'm going to be playing with her and what you should be looking forwards to using with your Yukong when she does come out. And she will be on that banner with Luocha, so you'd be able to get an imaginary Harmony character and an imaginary Abundance character at the same time. But one thing about Yukong is that she will be added to the game for you for free to gain access to an event in 1.2. They've already said this was in the 1.1 live stream. It's confirmed she will be free for all players in 1.2. Now, there is one last thing here. We have this before the tutorial mission starts, which is hilarious because Silver Wolf tutorial mission. But this is going to be a free card we get access to from the Star Hunt game. It's going to be a Nihility card for us again. Increases your effect hit rate. And also, if an enemy has defense down when you attack them, you're going to regenerate some energy as well. It's a fine card. It's pretty great. It's going to help you gain access to your ultimate more if you're using this on Silver Wolf instead of her own card. It's going to help you land your debuffs, your powerful defense breaks on Silver Wolf, and generate that energy. So you can spam her ultimate with that 350% mod and also keep that giant 50% defense break up. It's gonna be a very nice card, which leads us to one final thing, which is what is this? Well, guess what? It's how many of my comments I expect to be called bad takes.